So when Oshabi was revealed, I thought that it was going to be pretty good, and I made a video talking about how I thought it was going to be good. And turns out, yeah, it is pretty good. If you don't know, there is a new bloodline that was added this patch. The idea is we get +3 maximum unleash stacks, and then it also makes spells do 5% more damage per unleash before that unleash. So, like for instance, right now, if we have like 7 unleashes, the last spell in the cycle of our unleashes will do around like 35% more damage. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but it is literally just a more damage multiplier on top of all the rest of our damage. But the more important part is the unleash stacks. The reason being is it allows us to play differently than other spell builds. The concept is we cast one like spell, and then we wait, and then we cast the other spell, and then we alternate. The reason why this works is because if you don't know, you can have two 5 links in the same 6 link, quote unquote, because I have two Soulrends of the Spiral inside my 6 link, and each of them have their own unleash stack, meaning that technically one of the gems is a 100% more damage multiplier if you think of it that way, right? It allows us to simply kind of rotate between two of them and gives us significantly more damage because of it. And this works really well because we have so many unleash stacks that by the time that we're done casting our unleash stacks from our first skill, the unleash stacks of our second skill is up, and we can tune this behavior by getting seal menders. We can get more cast speed, we can get more damage, and just there's a lot of different ways of abusing this interaction. This is not just for this build, I will say. This build is very cookie cutter. You could add almost whatever spell you wanted to add. I just simply chose Soulrend of the Spiral because it's one of my favorite skills, and it has a lot of endgame damage scaling. And the main reason I chose it was the fact that the problem with Soulrend of the Spiral is its mana cost is absurdly high. I'm talking like gigantic. Right now I'm casting a Soulrend of the Spiral for 300 mana per time I cast it, but we're getting away with that because of the fact that we're only casting like maybe once per second, because the unleash stacks, whenever you cast, right, it ignores mana costs, meaning that we are getting 6 or 7 repeats of Unleash currently for Soulrend, and none of those are casting mana. So every single time we cast, we're essentially casting 2100 mana worth of spells without really investing too much into our mana. Right now we're just using Eldritch Battery, some ES Leech, and some ES Recovery, and that is enough to sustain us currently. I need slightly more Energy Shield, but that works for now, right? We'll get a little bit more later as we invest into this character. Now, this is important because it turns out when you don't have to worry about the mana cost of Soulrend in the Spiral, it ends up being a pretty good skill. Now, there's a lot of things about this skill that I can't really explain in this video right now that I'll explain with the full build guide showcase, but if you want more info on how this skill works, I'd heavily suggest checking out MrPoopButts' video in the description. He's the first person that I saw actually talk about Soulrend of the Spiral back in the day when it came out, and then of course I played it a few times and now I know how it works, and it feels really good. It's a good skill. It pierces all enemies, it returns, like there's so many different things that's really good about Soulrend of the Spiral, but like I'm not gonna fill it in this video because we have other stuff to talk about, which is power charge stacking. Yes, I know I'm being very, very brave in my decision of how to scale this character, but I promise you there's a very big reason or two. First things off, I wanted a lot of movement speed. I like blasting in Path of Exile. I think movement speed is very important to the end game experience, especially when you're bossing and stuff like that, and I want it as much as possible. And one of those ways of getting a bunch of movement speed is Replica Restless Ward. Essentially what it does is it gives us 6% movement speed per power charge that for frenzy charge that we have, and then we can run a Badge of the Brotherhood, which makes our frenzy charges equal to our power charges. Then we can simply just run a Ralakesh's Impatience to get a bunch of Frenzy charges, which means that our Frenzy charges are set to our max power charges, and it doesn't matter that there's a downside on Replica Restless Ward. You could use whatever chest you wanted on this build. I simply just chose Replica Restless Ward because we're going to get plenty of tankiness, we're going to get plenty of damage, like all of that's going to come with currency and investment, but one thing that's really hard to invest into is movement speed. So that's what I decided to do, was invest in some movement speed early on to make the build feel a lot better, and that will make it feel really amazing later on once we min-max it just a teensy weensy little bit more. And of course, power charge stacking has more reasons to be done than this. So the new assassin node that essentially is Sandstorm Visage, right now we're running a wand, two void batteries. One of them is corrupted to have critical strike chance on it, meaning that we have a 10% crit weapon in our main hand, which is raising our base crit significantly to 10%, which then of course scales off of all of our power charges and stuff. Pretty much thanks to all of our power charges, our void batteries and everything in our mastery, our crit is essentially solved just by breathing. Now we need a little bit more crit, but essentially I'm just standing there and my crit is solved thanks to Assassin. This allows us to focus archery on more important things, especially because of the fact that power charge stacking gives you absurd amounts of percent damage. This absurd amount of percent damage allows us to ignore nodes on the tree and focus more on important things. Now, one of the issues with this character is its reliance on Seal Mender to function properly in endgame. Seal Mender is a notable from large cluster jewels. Essentially, it gives you seal frequency, and right now I have 4 of them, 3 on large clusters and 1 of them on a Megalomaniac. The idea here is we just simply speed up the amount of time it takes to get seals, and then that means that we can have a more uptime of it. Right now, as it currently stands, I felt that 4 is plenty. Maybe you could go 5, but 4 is plenty. 3 would be completely fine. Hell, even 2 might be fine. It's dependent, right? But so far, I felt really good with 3 of them. Now, the only issue is as you add more and more of these, your mana situation will have to get better. Now, of course, with other skills that don't cost a bajillion mana, this isn't that big of an issue, right? But one of the issues with Seal Mender is how you craft / attain it. The biggest issue is it has a weighting of 0.33% on large cluster jewels for spell damage. So you have to have a spell damage large cluster, right? And then you have to roll it and you have to hit a Seal Mender. There are not that many ways of crafting this, unfortunately, other than absurd fossil crafting. Or what I did was I just bought them on the market for cheap because not many people are playing this. Unfortunately, if this archetype gets popular, Seal Menders are going to become absurdly expensive. So to fix this, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to like alt spam into like a Seal Mender, and then you're just going to have to live with the 1 in 4 for Fracture, and then eventually craft it from there. But when you do that, you will end up with really good clusters, while I have mediocre clusters right now. But of course, you know, it's an expensive process, and it's going to be an expensive process. One of the ways of cheating this, though, is through Megalomaniacs, because they can have seals on them, right? And there's plenty of people farming Simulacrum right now. But essentially, Megalomaniac is a medium cluster jewel that has a random assortment of notables, and this random assortment of notables can sometimes be Seal Mender. Right now, I actually have a really nice one that has Suppress on it and Seal Mender, but essentially, we just need like 2 to 3 of them to function. We don't need too many Seal Menders, but like I said, it is a pain point of the build. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for the build so far today. It's just been blasting. I've been having a lot of fun. It's really good in enclosed areas. This is the super budget version, I know, right? That I'm showcasing, and then now I'm gonna start investing into it significantly. We need to go get a Nimbus. We need to get some hunter gear, which I'll explain later why. We need to like, there's so many things we have to invest into and work on that I'm excited. This build is essentially an infinite money pit, but we're gonna get a lot of damage and we're gonna have a really fun blaster build at the end of it. So with all that being said, this has been Dread. I'm very happy to play a self-cast skill and not feel like I'm actually being punished for self-casting my skills. Bye, guys.